The phone rang late in November. I didn't answer immediately. I knew before I even touched the receiver what she would say. Her voice carried the precision of a scalpel, cutting without effort. "Don't come to Christmas," she said. Her words landed softly but with gravity. "Your life is an embarrassment." I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I hung up. Hand lingered over the receiver a moment longer, as if the act of letting go could somehow mute the echo of her judgment. Didn't. It never did. The house was quiet after that, the kind of quiet that can feel like an ally or a cage depending on who occupies it. I went about my work, the rhythm of my days unfolding with a disciplined detachment. Emails, spreadsheets, phone calls, each one a small proof that I could survive, excel, and keep moving without needing her validation. December arrived in a blur of gray light and early nights. I told myself I would not dwell on her words, slipped into the edges of my consciousness anyway, whispering during mundane moments the tap of coffee against ceramic, the faint hum of fluorescent office lights, the feeling of the wind against my cheek during a late night walk. I realized I carried a shadow of her assessment, even in her absence. I filled the days with small victories. Each one was deliberate, securing a reluctant donor, drafting a proposal that exceeded expectations, gently convincing a committee to expand a program I had championed. None of it was spectacular in the cinematic sense. Each act was a subtle reclamation of control. I felt a quiet satisfaction in the way accomplishments accumulated like building blocks, forming a structure too solid to be denied. At night, I would sometimes lie awake, replaying fragments of conversations from years past, critique she had delivered with thinly veiled disappointment, a comparison to some idealized sibling, sigh that seemed to echo through the walls long after she left the room. In these moments, acknowledged something I had avoided for decades. Her disapproval had shaped me more than I had ever admitted, could not define me. Not anymore. And then January arrived with a brightness that seemed too deliberate, too pointed in its clarity. I received a formal letter from the Children's Hope Gala Committee. I had been selected as this year's honoree. My name, alongside the cumulative efforts of countless colleagues and donors, was recognized for raising $4 million for children in need. The invitation felt like a subtle verdict, and yet also a release. Recognition had arrived not through her approval, but through the authority of a respected institution, complete with cameras, a program booklet, and the promise of public acknowledgement. The night of the gala, the ballroom shimmered with chandeliers and murmurs, polished floors reflecting the subtle glow of candlelight. I walked through the crowd with a calm, measured gait. Other guests smiled politely, some shaking hands, some nodding in recognition of past collaborations. I felt the familiar tightness in my chest ease slightly. This was a world in which effort, diligence, and results carried weight. Here, judgment came from authority, not caprice. I spotted her at table 19, seated with a friend whose presence I recognized but whose face had faded from memory. She did not see me. She had arranged herself with meticulous care, glass in hand, posture perfect, the very image of composure. I did not approach. I let her exist on the periphery, a figure from a past I no longer carried with fear. I recalled the last Christmas we had shared, year when I was still hopeful for approval. I remembered the forced smiles, the whispered comparisons, the sense that I was always insufficient. That memory hovered briefly and then receded like mist over a pond. I realized that the absence of her acknowledgement no longer meant absence of self-worth. The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the room. The cameras began their sweeping across tables, capturing laughter, applause, and the subtle clinking of glasses. Single spotlight illuminated the stage, and then, suddenly, my photo appeared on 3 massive screens. Announcer's voice cut through the hum. This year's honoree has raised 4 million for children in need. Her friend leaned in, almost lost in the crowd's murmur. Isn't that? My mother could not finish. Her mouth opened, but no words followed. She gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white, as if trying to anchor herself to some familiar reality. She looked at the screens, images of my work, at the tangible proof of effort, strategy, and commitment. And for a moment, she was speechless. I watched silently. I did not smile. I did not wave. I let the cameras, the applause, and the authority of recognition speak for me. The power shift was unmistakable, public, undeniable, external. She could not argue with it, deny it, or erase it. She could only bear witness. After the announcement, I returned to my table, engaging in polite conversation with colleagues and donors. The room's rhythm continued, unaffected by our private history. Somewhere in the midst of wine glasses and soft laughter, felt a profound sense of quiet accomplishment. Not revenge, not triumph, not celebration, but something steadier: clarity, control, and dignity. In the days leading up to the gala, I had allowed myself moments of reflection, quiet and unsentimental. I thought about every late night, every proposal rewritten, every small step that led to this acknowledgement. Thought about the times I had internalized her disapproval, and how, piece by piece, I had learned to measure my worth differently. Authority of the gala's recognition crystallized that learning, making it tangible, unassailable, yet devoid of cruelty. Evening drew to a close. Guests filed out, coats rustling, heels clicking on polished floors. Somewhere at table 19, my mother rose, supported by the friend who had guided her through the unfamiliar spectacle. She avoided my gaze entirely, returned to the stage area to gather program materials and notes, my posture steady, my steps deliberate. Felt the cool weight of the envelope in my hand, the press of the floor under my shoes, and the subtle hum of voices around me. Outside, air was crisp. Snow dusted the sidewalks in pale layers, reflecting the city lights with a quiet, ethereal glow. I inhaled, letting the cold fill my lungs. I realized I carried nothing but clarity and the knowledge of what I had built for myself. Approval I had once sought from her was irrelevant, replaced by the acknowledgement of those who understood effort, skill, commitment. I did not call her. I did not leave a note. I did not insist on recognition. Understood that silence could be a more exacting witness than words, and authority a more precise instrument than confrontation. Thought briefly about the years spent chasing approval, about the dinners, the phone calls, the unspoken comparisons. Realized that all of it had been a preparation, not for revenge, but for measured triumph, the kind that does not shout, does not demand applause, but exists as a quiet, undeniable fact. Somewhere behind me the gala's chandeliers dimmed completely, leaving the room in soft shadows. I took a step forward into the snow-dusted street, moving toward a taxi, toward the city, toward a life fully my own. The night air was sharp, clean, and indifferent to the past. The power once held over me now rested in the truth of what I had achieved and in the calm composure with which I carried it. My mother's judgment had once felt like a weight I could never lift. Now it hovered behind me, irrelevant and silent, while I walked with the certainty of someone who had earned not spectacle, but quiet authority. The gala had ended, applause had faded, and yet in its wake, I carried a calm dignity, a proof of work and self-worth, and a subtle, unmistakable shift in the balance of recognition. I had not sought to hurt her. I had not hoped for shock, humiliation, or vindication, only lived, worked, persisted, and let authority render her judgment powerless. And in that, there was a satisfaction so quiet it might have been mistaken for nothing at all, not for the unmistakable weight of truth on the screens behind her, the knowledge that I would never again need her words to measure my life. The taxi arrived. I opened the door and stepped inside, leaving the gala behind. Table 19 receded into the background of my life, a shadowed reminder of a past I had survived, and a world in which my work, not her opinion, defined me. Outside, the snow continued to fall. Inside, I held my clarity like a lantern, illuminating a path I had built myself, one quiet victory at a time. And somewhere in the ballroom, at table 19, someone remained speechless, confronted by a reality they could neither command nor erase. And I walked forward, calm, composed, fully aware that power could be quiet, earned, and undeniable.